Dear ladies and gentlemen, welcome to the very first Digital Alps Conference. My name is Thomas Ecker. I'm director of the Swiss Center for Mountain Regions, and I'm co-leader of Action Group 5 of EUSALP, which is organizing this meeting. I have the pleasure to guide you through these 2 days. These 2 days we are going to speak about, as you know, digitalization in the Alpine area. We are about 200 persons here, which is a big pleasure for us. So thanks for joining us. We are looking very much forward to this discussion with you as well. And if I say with you, then you have all the possibility to contribute to this conference by using the chat function that you have on the right side of the website. So don't hesitate to use it. If you have questions to specific speakers, please indicate to whom you are addressing them so that I can then afterwards steer it, direct it to the the right person. Sorry. The conference will be in English only, so please also use the chat in this function. I would not be able to translate into Slovenian, I'm sorry for that, but I hope that you are all familiar in between now with English. Now, as I said, we are going to discuss about digitalization. I already said AG5, Action Group 5. So I think we have to explain to you what is the context of this conference. And for this, I will give now the floor to Carlo Vigna, who is the other co-leader of Action Group 5. He is head of the unit of technological systems in the Department for Innovation and Digitalization of the Autonomous Region of Valle d'Aosta. Carlo, the floor is yours.
Thank you, Thomas. Good afternoon, everyone, and welcome to the first Digital Alps Conference, also by my side. And we organized this two-day conference to discuss potential of digitalization for the Alpine territories. So before to enter into this building of a common view and vision of key initiative for digitalization, we will start with a very quick overview of what is EUSALP and what are the main initiative of the Action Group 5. And we can start so sharing some slide, and the first initiative is of course the EUSALP Macro-Regional Strategy, that is the youngest of the macro-regional strategy and is the strategy of the territories. It was launched by European Commission in 2016 and encompass 48 regions, 7 countries, and 80 million of peoples. You can see the perimeter of the strategy with the blue line in the slide. The goal of the strategy is to improve the cross-border cooperation in Alpine countries, starting from the common need of the Alpine region and looking for common solution of these challenges. The EUSALP strategy has a rotating presidency, and now we are under the French presidency, and the coordination at operational level, and now this task is up to the Lombardy region. Both are a huge task, and we thanks French presidency and Lombardy region for doing this. If we go to the structure of the strategy, the EUSALP is built up in three main pillars. The pillar 1 is economic growth and innovation. The pillar 2 is mobility and connectivity, and the pillar 3 is environment and energy. And these are the main priorities of the overall strategy. Working on this pillar, there are 9 action groups, and this action group have everyone a specific goal that you can see in this slide. Action Group 5 is focused on connecting people electronically and to promote access to public services. It's of course a multi-level strategy, so the content that are built by Action Group are then coordinated by the executive board, where there is a representative for all countries and regions, and the aim is to propose into the policy cycle. The first one is to promote the smart villages approach. The second one is using the ICT technology to solve cross-border mobility issues. We aim to develop a data strategy and a data culture starting from the open data and the big data. Another goal is to develop common policies and digital access to the services of general interest. We try also to develop a strategic approach to digital infrastructure as a critical success factor for the economic development and the welfare of the Alpine territories. And all these things are put together in what we call the Digital Alps, so the process of the overall digital transformation of the Alpine territories. We did several projects in the past years, and the projects were financed by Alpine Space Program as the IESE project for delivery SGI services in an integrated manner at the local level. We worked on the Smart Villages project. It's another Alpine Space Program project. There were also some specific projects financed by the ARPA's Fund, like cross-border mobility and Smart SME. And of course, we did also other specific studies or initiatives, like the fiber optic backbone feasibility study in Alpine area, or the think tank on services of general interest financed directly by the AlpGov project. That is the project that is sustaining the work of the Action Group. But the goal for the future this year and the future upcoming year is to have a cross-sectoral approach of the EUSALP, so the different action groups are working together. In the next slide, we can see how these priorities are focused and where are focused on. There are 5 strategic priority policies. The first one is the spatial planning. The second is the carbon neutral Alpine region. Then there is the innovation hub for green businesses. The smart villages approach that is led by Action Group 5, and the EUSALP Innovation Facility. All these cross-sector initiatives have a contribution by the Action Group 5, directly or directly, and as all the other action groups, we are also developing specific strategic implementation initiatives. And by this point of view, one role of the action group is to catch the findings of also other project initiatives at the EUSALP level and to bring them to the attention of the EUSALP policy cycle. So please contact us also to get involved in these activities. Another point we want to show you is the organization of Action Group 5. We are organized on these main topics that you can see in light blue. And for every of these topics, we have a reference person in our action group. Then putting together all these activities under the communication task and the connection, the networking with the other stakeholder. And this Digital Alps Conference is the way we want to share the findings and build on this networking annually. So I give the floor to Thomas to go to the Digital Alps Conference.
Thank you very much, Carlo, for this introduction and showing us where we are located with this initiative. You have seen from the presentation of Carlo that we really want to bring together all the experiences, all the activities, all the initiatives that are going on in the Alpine area together in this Digital Alps Conference. Now, I don't, yes, this is the slide. Too much? Yeah, thank you. So, there seems to be some little problems, but we manage it. So the aims of our conference are really to identify the potentials of digitalization for the Alps. We will do this today also with our keynote speakers, and then I'm looking very much forward also to the conclusions by the young people that we will have at the end. And we, of course, and this is one of the main goals of this conference, try to create linkages with other ongoing initiatives in the Alpine area. We are aware that we as Action Group 5, we are not alone and we cannot do everything. There are a lot of initiatives going on, there are networks existing, there are Alpine Space Program projects, etc., going on. So we would like to create synergies with those initiatives, and this is one of the main points for today and most also for tomorrow, where we will have the panel discussion with several representatives from several of these other activities. Then afterwards, after the keynote speeches today, we will go into several workshops. Now, please, can you stay on this first slide, please? We will go into several workshops, and one of them will be the final conference also of the Smart SMEs project. You have seen from the presentation by Carlo before that Smart SMEs is one of our priorities. We have done a project on that, and this concludes by today. We'll also elaborate today with you, hopefully, a roadmap for open data in the Alpine area. We also discuss about the opportunities offered by eHealth. I think this is really a topic of crucial importance. We have all seen how important it is now during the COVID-19 crisis, which is still not over, unfortunately. And we are convinced that with digitalization, with eHealth, we can contribute to strengthen the resilience of mountain and rural areas. We'll also try to build together with you a roadmap for digital infrastructures. Of course, this is an important topic for us. And tomorrow, I'm very grateful for that, we will launch a new network on Alpine Smart Villages. You will have all the explanations tomorrow on this activity. So now for the program for today. So on this first day, we have, as I said before, 2 keynote speeches, which I will introduce you afterwards. Then after a short break, we will be back again in the plenary to explain the parallel workshops and then go into these parallel workshops. We have 4 parallel workshops which represent a little bit the main activities that we have in Action Group 5. So as I told before, smart SMEs, open data, digital infrastructures and eHealth. And at the end of today, we will have a summary on all these workshops. And as I said before, I'm looking very much to see also how young people see the future of the Alpine area, especially with a focus on digitalization. Then tomorrow, this is the next slide, we will more talk about networking. We will have 3 very high-level keynote speeches from the European Commission first, with Gérard de Graaf and Silvia Michelini, and also from the French presidency of EUSALP, which is represented by Christian Barret. And then we will also have a very interesting roundtable with Jan Dröge. Saverio Maestro is not there tomorrow. He will be replaced, but I will explain it to you tomorrow. We will have also Emilia Stoimenova and Anna Giorgi tomorrow on the roundtable to discuss about potentials for synergies about digitalization. Then tomorrow, the launch of the Smart Alps Network and some concluding remarks and the way ahead. This is the program that we would like to discuss with you. And now I'm looking very much forward already to the first presentation. And with that, I can introduce to you now the first keynote speaker, which is Steffen Hess. And I'm waiting for him to appear also on the screen. Yes, there he is. Hello, Mr. Hess.
Hello.
His joining us from Germany, and here you see how digitalization can ease a lot in the Alpine area. I'm talking to you from my Swiss home in the mountains. You are all connected through Aosta Valley, and now we are talking with Germany. So this is how digitalization helps us also to communicate. Steffen Hess is head of the Department of Digital Society Ecosystems at the Fraunhofer Institute in Kaiserslautern. I think many of you are familiar with this institute. It's a very high-level institute about digitalization. Steffen Hess, in particular, has also worked a lot with the digitale Dörfer in Rheinland-Pfalz and Bavaria, digital villages for the English-speaking. So he has a lot of experience on that, and I'm looking very much forward to his presentation, how we can foster or master the digital transformation in rural areas. Mr. Hess, please.
Thank you very much, and also thank you for giving me the opportunity to speak here, and welcome to everybody at home or at work or wherever you are. I'm perfectly fine in the rural region in Germany, sitting in a very green place at the moment. So let's jump right into the presentation, which is about unleashing the potential of digitization as a tool to develop the Alpine area. What I'm planning to give you is more or less an appetizer of what we are currently discussing in our project, what could be the future also for the Alpine region, what are just the things you need to negotiate at the moment, the decisions you need to make, no matter if you are a municipality or a company or a research institution in the Alpine area, to be prepared for the future. So let's jump right into it. We have on the next slide. So thank you already for the introduction. I think there's all set. You have my contact information here just in case you need to have some talk or go into depth after this presentation. So on the next slide, we see what we currently faced in our projects. If there's animation, you can just skip through. That might ease the thing here. Thank you. So a few years ago, we talked about digitization as a means of, bringing analog things to digital products. And in the meantime, we still use the same term, but we mean different things by digitization, which is indeed that technology changes the markets and industry by also transforming or digitization of the whole process, which is an example. So going from analog music to the compact disc to the CD, this is what we currently mean when we talk about digitization. But what we face more and more, especially in industry, is that digitization is heading over to a digital transformation kind of thing. So that also the business model is changing due to what is possible with digitization. So that we completely change the way we think about products, so that we are not just buying music anymore, that we just renting the opportunity to listen to music, which transforms complete industry, and which often leads to so-called digital ecosystems, where we do our research mainly focusing on. And that on one hand side, this gives us opportunities to have potential, but we also need to think about different kind of working and different kind of roles we might to take also as a region or as a municipality in that case. And yeah, that's what we want to talk on now. And on the next slide, we basically see the different kinds of innovation you can take as a region. So on the x-axis, we have the incremental innovation, which is, being more efficient, doing cost reduction, things we are usually very good at the center of Europe, especially Germans are very good in, in putting out that last inch, efficient, to have that tool a bit smaller to make it better. But with digital transformation, there's a new axis coming into, which is here called radical innovation, that deals with new value creation. And to really be innovative and to really strengthen also the region, the Alpine region, I think you need to work on both scales, which is sometimes hard for European people because they are not so used to radical innovations, you know, to really think about to think differently, to reinvent whole business models, to create new services, products that have not been there before. And when we talk about that, we are running towards digital ecosystems. And yes, as I'm part of a research organization, I've also brought to you a definition of a digital ecosystem that we see on the next slide. And the thing is that such an environment addresses actual needs of potential consumers in the Alpine areas. And consumers can be people that just live there. Consumers can be tourists. Consumers can be people that have a mobility need, as you already mentioned, but also municipalities. And what's key to success is that really an added value is delivered through that digital ecosystem that has not been there before and that was not possible before. And by doing that, it's usually attractive to both like providers and consumers of services. So very well-known examples of ecosystems from practice are things like the Amazon ecosystem or things like Delivery Hero, to also name a European startup or ecosystem thing, where the main purpose of the digital solution is just to bring together providers and consumers on a high level. But the good thing is that it provides value to all partners that are involved. And that's really a key success. It might sound easy at the moment, but if we look also especially into research projects, into things that are currently done with supporting money, we often see that it's not the case that all partners really have a value in participating in that digital solution, you know, in going on board. But that's a key that the solutions can be sustainable, can still live after the funding period. And that's why we have to question from a very beginning that that all those partners have to have a value, that we can specify them and that we can define it. Yes, and thus on the next slide, you see that the overall benefit of such an ecosystem, it's especially results from that combination of things like a digital brokering platform. So in the center of the solutions, there needs to be a purely digital thing. And that's sometimes hard because we need to get rid of analog stuff on the beginning. And then we can work on bringing partners in, which is usually a large set of partners that participate in that ecosystem that really creates the network effects. And to work in a region like the Alpine region, it's a perfect setting to have to create or to shape actually a digital ecosystem. For some extent, I would say you already have it. Because you already have those network structures, you are working together, you know the partners that are there. You just need to somehow manage it to do it. And to work on the digital ecosystems Alpine area, we see on the next slide on a pretty complex model if you expand it. And it's not about this presentation to go into detail. It's more about things that you need to think about when working on really being what you also named like the reference region for digitization in Europe. There are several steps that you just need to take into account. And there is the core, which deals about, of course, the digital solutions, but also about the business model that's behind it, about law regulations that just need to take into account in order to be successful in the end. And on a subsequent step, I need to somehow organize it. So I have to have a vision for these ecosystems that I will show later also what we had in the beginning. I need to have a strategy and need to do all my homework in order to get it running. And on the next layer, I definitely need to think about partners. Who are the right partners? What can I do to involve the partners? How do I select them? And also to think about who can or should not be partner in that part, which is also available. And to just enable collaborations that you already do perfectly by having events like this. And then I'm usually having the community, which is usually citizens in the case of our projects that deal in the rural regions. But I also need to establish that community. I need to think about managing the community, and also having things like education for the people that need to use things in our digital ecosystems. And of course, I will have competitors. I need to observe them. I need to do research on it. And competitors can be companies like Google, Facebook as well, because they provide solutions that we might provide as the Alpine region. They could be partners, they could be competitors, and it's really important to think about it, to know the countries that need to be partners, to know the different kinds of players. We have usually countries, counties, municipalities, and different countries have different structures, but there are stakeholders that have interests in their region as well. And if we go from a top-down perspective, it might be really good to also integrate it from a bottom-up approach to work with the people that are really there. And yeah, if you take just one thing from this initial presentation today, it's written on the next slide, and it says that it's important to define which role the Alpine region wants to play in this digital ecosystem. And I'm not giving you a recommendation which role you should be, and the role can be different for the mobility ecosystems versus the tourist ecosystem, for example. But it's just important to actively think about what comes with wanting to have that role. And on the next slide, you see the three different roles that you basically can take. So first, you can be the enabler of that ecosystem, which means that you set the boundaries, that you set the rules, that you develop this ecosystem from scratch by being just the main driver of it. And usually I ask the people in the crowd now what they think their company or municipality's role should be. So the question would be also for you to think about what should be the role of the Alpine region. And if you decide to be the enabler in that case, there comes a certain responsibility and also a budget that you need to have. You need to build the ecosystem. You need to do partner management. You need to create all that. You need to have suppliers that provide you with concrete solutions for example, for your mobility solution. And therefore, it's not so. Usually, what we see in politics and in practice is that people claim that they want to be the enabler, but they don't give any budget or commitment on the other hand. And that's just not working. And you need to be honest to yourself that you should take a role that's reasonable to also what you want to bring in. And that's perfectly fine to, for some reasons, not wanting to be the enabler for that and just take another role, but take it by purpose. So the two additional roles are you can be an active player. So you are not the enabler, you are not setting the basic roles, but you, for example, bring in a use case. You are a main stakeholder, you drive things, you work together with the companies that drive the ecosystem and bring it in, which is usually the role that smaller municipalities take, or just regions that don't have a perfect financial situation as well, or resource situation in terms of people that can work on the project. And the third option is to just be an observer, to really, to look what companies are doing, or what regional companies are doing, or what global companies are doing, and observe it, but by purpose decide to not take the two other roles, which is also sometimes important, that you just can clearly communicate and also focus on the things that you can do to develop your region in a perfect scale. So behind that decision on which role you want to take, there's the question on the next slide that says you have to answer the question, why do you want to take this role as a region, as a company? So what are the things that you are expecting with it? And for sure, if you claim that you want to be number one for digitization in Europe, I think the role of at least an active player or an enabler should be the one you take in order to actually be able to fulfill that goal in the end. So yes, and on the next slide, we see the vision we had for rural regions actually 6 years ago now, which is exactly the case that you are facing today, that we have to think about the cross-border digitization, especially in rural areas where I usually have less budget, less people, that just makes it hard to have business cases in the end. And that's why we have to, for example, combine smart farming, tourism, and mobility as so far silos in terms of digitization in order to work together, that our Alpine region can really leverage what's there in potential. And this is possible because especially in regions like the Alpine region, you have the power to enable the collaboration. You are in a structure where also the municipalities and organizations that are above that have usually already the role of bringing together people that work together. And now you just do the same for digitization. You basically felicitate the process for your region. And yeah, that's also where you can think about what we have on the next slide to really rethink also the role a region or a municipality, how it's named here, or a city or whatever has, to also enable new business models for yourself. So why should not a region be the driver of such a digital ecosystem and to make it sustainable? Like a region is also taking care that industry can build, factories in so-called industry areas that we have in most of the countries. So why not doing that for digitization? So like setting the ground that the companies in our region can do business on it. And that's a huge opportunity to really be like things like number one, or to have a lighthouse project in that case, and to really do digital transformation in our region. But it's a full-time job, so it's not that you can do it by accident or by there is this one guy in our region that has already a full-time job, and we give him this job in addition, that he or she can do it during nights, which is in a lot of regions in Germany happening at the moment, and which I really cannot recommend. So take that role, but also take resources to fulfill that role, to scope what might be the role of a region or a municipality, and to really think about the opportunities you can have, but also be aware that, and that's one thing I also want to emphasize, is that digitization is not solving all of our challenges today. And somehow it seems that regions tend to think that digitization can solve every problem, and it's just the only thing we need to do. And that's also something I want to mention, that this should not be the case. Yes, to basically sum up with the next slide. So we have 5 layers that we, so please apologize for the German words here, that we need to take into account when we digitize the Alpine region. So the first layer is societies and competencies of people, which is often neglected by, talking about all that 5G infrastructure, we need to make it happen thing, is that you need to give a hand to the people, that you need to think about education purposes, that you need to really take them into the process, that they are not just spectators anymore. The second layer is digital services, where we are usually very good in defining that, that mobility platform that solves all our problems with mobility, but unfortunately costs a bunch of million euros, and the mobility players just don't want to get in. But that's good thing too, that we already think about those services, that we know what could be good, and we just need to develop it. And this is usually based on a technical platform, which is the third layer, which can enable collaboration across disciplines, across silos, because that technical platform, if that's based on standards and on common grounds, on interfaces, the digital services can be connected no matter from which origin area they are. And of course, we have the fourth layer of infrastructure, which is a prerequisite, but also to mention that which is not a common, a reason for not thinking about the three layers above. And to be able to leverage that potential, you need to have a fifth layer, which is the organizational ecosystem. So you need to have someone in place that organizes all that in order to really strengthen the region. And there's usually four elements we see in projects or in regions that are really successful. And that's my last slide. So if you have one takeaway, it's those four elements. So the first one is collaboration, which you can see on the next slide, which you somehow already have in place by having that group and projects that you have. But you really need to break it down into also collaboration in certain regions as well. So not just having this on the overall and broad scope. The second element is creativity, which is, from my point of view, really important in several issues. It's not to be creative and come up with cool digital services. It's also to be creative and think about, how can I run this? How can I have a business model? How can I do maybe things as a municipality where it's questionable if I'm allowed to do it? So, and there's a lot of cool creative things where municipalities start, being part of companies or non-profit organizations, which is really also a kind of creativity. And the third element is to really get it done. So get your hands dirty, do it actually. So we see a lot of cool concepts that are just never realized because they are written and documented and we are done. But our approach in projects is to really develop services, to get them to the people, to get really hands-on knowledge about if that's good, what we think it's good. And then the fourth element is always to have a business model in mind. And a business model means to be able to sustainably run digital solutions after the funding period. So you don't have to have a revenue or to make money with it, but you need to come out 0 to 0 at the end, also on the long term. Yes, so I hope I could give you some impressions on what we work, and you might take some of the aspects to your discussions. And yes, I wish you a great conference, great 2 days. And yeah, just in case, there's contact dates again, and I would be happy to answer questions also directly if you want to name that. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much, Mr. Hess, for this inspiring presentation. I think we have all seen that there are huge potentials for digitalization in rural areas, but it is also a very complex task, and we have to reflect very well which role we want to play. This leads me to just one short question. You were working with the digital villages in Bavaria and in Rhineland-Pfalz. What is your experience from these rural digital villages? Are they aware of the potentials, and can they master the digital transformation on their own, or do they need an external support?
So first of all, they are very much aware. What we see from working with counties, it's the larger the municipality, municipal organization is, the more aware they are. So smaller municipalities are not so much aware than larger or cities or counties. And I think in the beginning, it's important to have own resources, which is first step, which is not often the case, but to have resources that are dedicated to digitization of the municipality of the area. And then it's good to have support, but by having support, you need to ensure that knowledge transfer comes to your own municipality. So just have external support by consulting, and if the consulting is gone, the knowledge is gone. It's not in a good way. And I understand that the consulting business is to be consulted also in the future. But if you have a good consulting on a regional base, you don't need the consultation anymore. Yes. So you might need those Fraunhofer guys if you want to buy a data platform for several euros to get the process running and to have some external support. But in the end, to some extent, you should be able to, if you do it the next time, that you can do it on your own. And that's what we see in good municipalities that manage the process. A bad example is what we also see if you have funding of a European or national project in order to have a person funded that's working on digitization in your municipality. Once the funding is gone, usually digitization is gone, because they don't, you don't get it into your regular funding to have that position also after the funding period. And that's also something I really want to encourage people to try to find a way to also have those knowledge, in a regular municipality and not just in a funding project setting. And that's what large cities now start on working, have things like the CTOs or chief technical officer. And on a county level, that might be good as well, that there is some position full-time that serves for smaller municipalities just to, to have it in-house for some extent. So sorry for the long answer, but I think it's not so easy to say yes or no.
That's always a tricky quick thing with short questions. They lead to long answers. Now, thank you very much for the explanations. Thank you very much indeed. I think it was clear from your presentation and now also from this answer that when we are talking about digitalization, it is not about digital infrastructures only, but a lot about digital competencies which have to be built up in the concerned municipalities, territories, etc. Thank you very much, Mr. Hess. Thank you for having been with us.
Thank you.
Thank you. And now I can introduce the next speaker. We are changing a little bit the level. We have Andrea Gumina, who is joining us. Hello, Mr. Gumina.
Hi. Very good morning. Good afternoon.
Good afternoon, more or less. Yeah, he was working. Yeah. You were working with the Ministry of Economic Development before. You were discussing about innovation, smart cities, so really important topics also for us. But actually, you're at the Ministry for Foreign Affairs. So you are even higher in the scope. Now you're talking about the international level. And I think from that, you can really bring us quite some interesting inspirations. So the floor is yours. Please, Mr. Gumina.
Thank you so much, Mr. Regger. Also, a very good afternoon to all the participants of this very interesting webinar. I found the words and the presentation of Mr. Hess inspiring as well. So now I'm trying to give you some hints, let me say, some views that found their ground in my actual work at the G20 presidency and at the Ministry of Foreign Affairs. But I will assure that I will be short and very stick to the point. So if we can start with my presentation. Okay, next slide. The COVID-19 was maybe a trigger of a paramount transformation that comes from very far. Actually, we guess that at an international level, we all agree that this will be a very transformative decade. What does it mean? It means that technology, not only digital, will play a paramount, very significant, and maybe not even seen before a role in our societies, in our economy. The outcome is that if we can't make very precise forecast for the very short term and even for the medium term. If you look at the three charts on growth, employment, and competitiveness in our societies, if you look at the average, you can see that the slope of the curve and also the difference between the higher expectation and the lower expectation are so far that it's practically impossible to say if our economies, in the advanced economies, in the middle income economies and the lowest income economies, will see and when a growth, robust growth or not. But what we can guess is that the combination of a lot of technologies will affect our economies, and maybe someone will started as the cover of The Economist of February portraits. It started talking about the Roaring Twenties to echo the period that came after the First World War. Please, next slide. We started thinking about and talking about the next production revolution at G7 level and even at G20 level in 2017, so 4 years ago. And we started looking at the transformation inherited by technologies as a whole, starting talking about the next production revolution as a complex interrelation between several technologies, not only digital, that are going to have a relevant impact both on production of services and goods and on society. So somehow this decade maybe will be witnessed as one of the most transformative one, because several technologies will interact each other, maybe or hopefully with a strong impact on labor, competitiveness, productivity, growth, societies, and so on. And somehow the role of the policymakers will be to prevent the negative effects and to boost, to leverage the positive ones. Data, machine learning, blockchains, robots, advanced and ubiquitous connectivity, biology, 3D printing, nanotechnologies are only a bunch of this amount, a very complex amount of technologies that are actually affecting research and production, and of course are going to exert an effect, a very interesting effect on our societies and on our economies. So, next slide, please. This is very true, and this is also at the heart of the G20 negotiations. From this slide, you can go on, please. I try to point out how this idea is at the very heart of several tracks of the G20 exercise that's actually undergoing, as technology really influences the discussions at finance track, where we are talking about how to create an environment that is conducive to investment and growth, how to define a global financial stability framework that is going to interact with a world that is more and more digitized, and also how to reform the tax systems in order to allow traditional business and more innovative one to compete on a fair playground, and also to create wider space for financing investment in the digital and the other enabling infrastructure. So next, please. Of course, this is at the very bottom line of the innovation Sherpa track. So the Digital Economy Task Force and the academics informal gathering that we will host as G20 in Italian presidency are working on a lot of policy issues spanning from connectivity and social inclusions to blockchains, to data, how to make transnational data flows available at a transnational level, and so on. And in terms of, next please, academics informal gathering, we are also looking on how to enhance skills and collaborations among G20 in order to allow people that is part of our motto, people, planet, and prosperity, to reap the benefits of such important and relevant transformation brought about the digital economy and the innovation economy. And finally, next please, we will also host an innovation event that we call G20 Innovation League, where challenges that have been defined by G20 countries will be proposed to startups and scale-ups that will cooperate within a public-private scheme to solve to the benefit of their budget, of course, and the mankind too. Next slide, please. So this scenario is very is at the bottom line of my discussion, of my proposal, as I found that the EU Alpine region can be seen at an international level as an area with several strength factors that somehow could help leading it to being an innovative ecosystem, acting as a transnational open lab to identify, test, and accelerate innovative solutions and approaches. So, if I may put on the table a possible vision for this area, a possible vision to foster this Alpine region innovative digital ecosystem, I think that the combination of these strength factors, such as the way of living, the critical mass that has been inherited by the interaction among several areas within a very interesting part of the world, such as Europe, the presence of strong knowledge and strong school, international institutions, the SMEs, also the availability of finance, both at public and private level, an effective public sector, since this area is characterized by maybe the most performing public institution at European level, the network of excellences that live in this area, the international acknowledgement, and also, I hope, and I guess, a common vision among the leaders of this region. Well, this combination maybe could help in bringing the result that I suggest. So, if I may, next slide, please. If I may suggest 3 practical areas of work in order to gain this goal, the first one will be trying to set up an ecosystem where R&D, innovative procurement, and enabling infrastructure will be perceived, will make the Alpine region perceived as a unique set to experiment state-of-the-art solutions and cope with several challenges. In other terms, I suggest that a common regulatory framework could lead this Alpine region to become the largest European area to host and boost, for example, smart innovation, sandboxes, agile regulation, smart procurement schemes, such as the one that we introduced in Italy very recently under the Smarter Italy program, and interconnected infrastructures can make this area the optimal region, transnational region for the most innovative startups startups and industries and research centers and talents and so on to experiment not with a supply-driven approach, but with a demand-driven approach, meaning that the public sector could set the challenges also through enhancing the collaboration, the bottom-up collaboration with citizens, and then put them on the market and ask for the market to solve them by facilitating the access to finance, and also to by providing them the optimal regulation. Next slide, please. So this is the first suggestion. The second suggestion is that maybe this area have the potential to introduce the most innovative facilities to attract talents, also in addition to companies, as a way to accelerate the deployment of these solutions. The Alpine region could be the first transnational area to experiment industrial research and acceleration facilities as a service. So I think that there is maybe the opportunity to connect your most prominent private and public entity of this region, maybe those that holds technology transfers labs and facility, to ease the access, especially from startups and micro and small and medium enterprises. Of course, it's important to avoid overlaps, enhance collaboration, but I guess that this policy could lead, together with an attraction-friendly legislation, this region to have the most vibrant ecosystems in terms of talents, startups, maybe also investors, and that this would also lead to a very, very strong impact on real GDP, since that brings people, high net worth individuals, to relocate from all over the world in a very beautiful scenario, also from the way of life point of view. The other slides, please. Next slide. Finally, the third policy suggestion is to be very, very eager to boost growth capital and the industrial hybridization in order to scale up and ease the adoption of these solutions from people and MSMEs. I guess that the Alpine region could become an example of cross-country collaboration between public and private financing. This is a very rich area, maybe the most rich area in Europe, so has the potential to become a sort of a valley, an Alpine valley, let me say. You of course have valleys, but I mean digital valleys, smart valleys, and I guess that there are all the chances to bring together finance, public and private finance, to boost and to ease the adoption, the scale up, and then maybe also the go global process of these solutions, in order to make any kind of solution realized by answering to a challenge, a potential solution for the global market. Maybe in this case, countries that where regions are located already have all the tools and also the networks that can allow this transformation, and so a matching tool to help MSMEs to accede without having to be bored from national borders can be an optimal and very easy solution to gain also this goal. So, in maybe next slide. Of course, this process can be facilitated by the fact that within the Digital Alps region, you already have several challenges that has been identified by your action group. I highlighted simply by picking this image from your website and identify possible challenges that, of course, span from climate to digital. Within the action group 5, maybe the enabling infrastructures and the access to them, in addition to the challenge connected to the importance to have a single digital identity access for that is transnational, independently from the region where you came from. The importance of set up agile regulation and sandboxes, as I guess from a legislative point of view, and of course to deliver and assure public services and continuity. These are the challenges that can be put on the table to attract and to attract talents and startups that can cooperate and collaborate with the private sector, with the public sector to solve them. But in general, I don't think that you should be stick to the digital sector. I guess that the very interesting and maybe the most prominent opportunity from the Alpine region is to, if you want to, of course, pave the way of an ecosystem, innovative ecosystem, is to try to bring together and to manage all these challenges and to make your area the most attractive and also the most beautiful in the world, to have people, talents, companies, investors to work together and to solve challenges that can be at the very heart of a development process and can be also very, very functional to solve issues that you can find all over the world. So this is my contribution to this conference. I thank you for listening. Of course, I'm at your disposal even in the future to talk about this, because I guess that this is the future of many ecosystems in the world, and the Alpine region has maybe the greatest chances to succeed in it. So thank you so much.
Thank you very much, Mr. Gumina, for your also a very inspiring presentation. I think with your presentation, you really underlined the pure existence of EUSALP, because this is exactly what we want to do. We want to work together in this Alpine area, and what we also want to do is to work across all the 9 action groups. It is not really a sectoral approach, but we really want to foster also cooperation amongst these action groups. And I think with your 3 visions, you also challenged us. That's very good. So we have something to do for the future as well. Unfortunately, I do not see any questions in the chat, so please, participants, if you have questions for the speakers, don't hesitate. I have just one also very small, stupid question maybe, but you were talking about talents. It is important to attract talents, but in reality, is there not very often a concurrence between territories? That the one territory says, well, all the talents have to come to my territory and not the other one. How can we bridge this concurrence situation? Do you have any hint for us?
I guess that, yes, this is a very important question. And of course, to make a longer story very short, I guess that the only way is to avoid overlaps and to enhance complementarities between territories. The importance of starting working together on a strategy that will bring fruit to everyone is key from the political point of view, in order to assure the political, let me say, the political stakeholders that independently from the fact that a specific talent will go to a region and another one to another region, the fruits of this action will be bared by everyone, by the whole area. So I guess that strategic planning is the best way to avoid maybe misunderstanding between different regions. And then, I guess that the market will make the other part of the story.
Yeah, but really that confirms once again the existence of EUSALP, that we have a common strategy where all the Alpine countries and regions work together for a common goal and not one against each other. So I think this is really the added value also what we are discussing today. Thank you very much, Mr. Gumina.
Very welcome. It was a pleasure. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Now, you have deserved a break because we know that all these conferences on the screen, they are very tiring. We are a little bit late with the program. We have about 10 minutes of delay. So I would say also for the Regia that we make the break until 15:20. So 10 minutes of break. Before leaving for the break, I would ask the moderators of the workshops to already join the Zoom room if they have not yet done it. But all the participants, please stay here in the plenary. We will meet again in 10 minutes in the plenary, and I will introduce to you the workshops. So enjoy your coffee break. Hello and welcome back from the coffee break. I hope you could enjoy this short break, which lasted a little bit longer than initially foreseen. We are sorry for that, but I hope you understand that there's quite some technique behind this conference. And at this point, I would also really like to thank Uffizione Zoom, who is supporting us, and all the team from Valle d'Aosta, who is taking care of this meeting. Without them, it would not have been possible to organize such a meeting. Thank you very much. Thank you very much for understanding now that this took a little bit more time. We will recover that. We have planned enough time for the workshops. And I would like to introduce to you now all these 4 workshops. And we will see now the moderators of the workshop appearing. Yeah, hello, here they are. So I will present to you the persons who are there and also the content of the workshop. And I go from left to right on my screen. This is the easiest way to do it. So the first workshop is Peter Niederer, who is actually Vice Director of the Swiss Center for Mountain Regions. He's sitting in my office in Bern. I hope he's not alone. He will be chairing the workshop, or let's call it the final conference of the Smart SMEs project. We have been working now for 2 years within Action Group 5 on this topic of smart SMEs. How can SMEs benefit from the potentials of digitalization. And this was a very intense work. It goes a lot in the direction of what Mr. Gumina presented before. And it was also a cooperation amongst different action groups, with Action Group 2, Action Group 3 also contributing. And we will have now the presentation of all these results, and I can assure you it will be quite some interesting results. So if you're interested in that topic, it's Peter Nieder with the Smart SMEs. Then in the middle, we have Darja Kukovic, who is from Slovenia, from the University of Maribor. Hello. She's one of our very active members of Action Group 5. At this time, also very much thank you for all your contributions that you give to us. And she was particularly interested also in the topic of open data. To be very honest with you, this is a new topic for us. We have seen that there is a lot to be done on open data. We are really at the beginning. And this workshop today is also the start of this work. And therefore, it would be very important if some of you are interested and have some knowledge on open data, please join this workshop with Darja, because we would like to build with you a roadmap on what we are going to do in the next years in Action Group 5. So open data with Darja Kukovic. Then you see Carlo Vigna, who you already know. He is our contact or focal point for digital infrastructures. And he will lead today the workshop on digital infrastructures. I think I do not have to tell you much about the importance of digital infrastructures, because if you are talking about digitalization, we need digital infrastructures. Without digital infrastructures, nothing happens. And we have identified, also in a study that we have carried out in Action Group 5, several gaps also in the backbone on digital infrastructures in the Alps. So there's really much to be done also on cross-border activities. Carlo and his fellows will talk to you about this, present what we have done, and also try to identify together with you a roadmap for what is to come. So also to build with you, the participants, a roadmap for the future activities. So if you're interested and have particular knowledge on digital infrastructures, please join Carlo in his workshop. And last but not least, Gabi Tröger-Weiss, who is a very, very good friend of mine. We are working since many years together. She is from the University of Kaiserslautern. She will be leading the workshop on e-health. How can digitalization help to improve the accessibility to health services? I already mentioned this topic in the introduction. I think it is a really important topic which has gained a lot of importance now, also during the COVID-19 crisis. We have seen that it helped us to strengthen resilience, but I think, saying this also from a Swiss perspective, we could do a lot much more in this field also. And we are going to discuss this with Gabi Tröger-Weiss in this fourth workshop. So if you are interested on this topic, e-health, please join Gabi Tröger-Weiss on this workshop. Now for the procedure. All these workshops, all these 4 workshops are running on a Zoom platform. So on your actual website where you are cited now, you should have a link to every one of these workshops. You can simply click on the link which will lead you to the Zoom platform then. Please leave the main platform where you are now open, because you will come back at 16:45 or 4:45 on this main platform, where the moderators, which will stay in the Zoom platform, they will report, as they are located now, from the Zoom platform what you have discussed within the workshops. So I'm looking very much forward to these presentations, because I know that you will have much to discuss. So this is it from my side. I think I have told everything that I needed to say. Yes, I'm looking to my notice. So now we have, yes, a little bit more than 1 hour for the workshops, and I hope that you can enjoy your workshops. Enjoy it. Hello, welcome back from the workshops. I see that the moderators are still alive. They are even smiling, so I suppose that there were fruitful discussions, and I'm eager to hear now what they have discussed. But just before entering into this round from the workshops, we missed a question from the chat before. There was a question during the last presentation on bottom-up planning. The question was, we know that smart villages are a bottom-up approach, and how can we assure that bottom-up planning is also integrated into other overarching strategies? Quite a complicated question. We know that it is really crucial. All that I can say now at this time as an action group leader, if you from the participants, for instance, have concrete activities or ideas of what you would like to do, please contact the action group leaders. We are very eager to listen to you and to integrate then also your ideas into our work plans. This is how we can build from bottom up together some concrete activities. Because also when we discussed about smart SMEs, etc., we didn't invent it ourselves. It was mainly also on request from different people that we created these activities. So this was a trial of a response. It is not exhaustive. Now, let's see what was discussed in the workshops. And I would again take the same order as in the presentation. So I would like to start with Peter. Peter, you had the workshop on smart SMEs, which was effectively the final conference on smart SMEs. Could you maybe tell us if there were some very important findings that the others should also know? And what would interest, of course, all of us, and me in particular, did you identify a way ahead? Because this was a preparatory action, and we said we would build on that for the future. So I don't know if there are some concrete ideas how we can continue with the topic. Peter.
Sorry. So actually, I would like to focus on the way ahead. What Thomas mentioned already, there was not so much discussion in our group because our time was very much limited, and you mentioned actually this question just before. The bottom-up approaches was an issue, and actually in this summary I would rather then focus on the way ahead. We have been working on this issue topic, of course, in the last 10 months, and we are establishing, especially EcoPlus, our project partner, is establishing a network on facilitators and interested persons on smart SMEs topic. And then we have also the draft of an action plan and future action fields elaborated by our project partner Andrea. And this was presented by Gerd Meyer-zu-Köcker from the Cluster Management Baden-Württemberg. And actually, these action fields, they are threefold. The first action field is networking. And I also already mentioned this. We want to create a network, establish a network of interested persons into the topic of smart SMEs. LinkedIn group has been already founded, initiated. It can be joined via Simone Hagenauer, our responsible work package partner. And there you will have the opportunity to join this network. And then we have as kind of second action field, the promotion of tools for digitalization. And here we, of course, want to focus on good practices, assessment of good practices, dissemination of good practices in different networks. And also, as a second point, the value chain generator, which has been developed also in an Interact project, Alpine Link Bioeco. And we want to capitalize and use this value chain.
We lost the sound of Peter.
Sorry, somehow I got muted.
Yes, it's okay now. No, sorry, we don't hear you.
Strange. Huh? Okay. Strange.
That's okay,
somehow
yeah.
I got muted again. Don't know why. Okay. For action field number 2, we have the promotion of tools for digitalization. I mentioned the good practices. We have to assess good practices. We have to disseminate good practices. And then we have the value chain generator, which serves also for the promotion of tools for digitalization. This value chain generator has been developed in an Interact project, also in close cooperation with the EUSALP Macro-Regional Strategy. And then we have, of course, the development of SMEs projects. We mentioned, or Thomas, you mentioned that already before. EUSALP is very open for concrete ideas and in the assistance of SMEs projects development. So this was action field 2, and then action field 3 is actually the adaptation of funding schemes, and there is already some progress in the introduction of, in the field of the introduction of vouchers. Vouchers are a very concrete, effective tool to help SMEs financing tools, concrete activities in the field of digitalization. And then, of course, we have also tools that enable the cross-regional cooperation. We should foster them furthermore. And there, the Innovation Express 2021 has been mentioned by Gerd Meyer-Zucköcker. It seems to be a very interesting tool to help funding, help within the funding of digitalization activities. So I think this is the most important outlook, the more important points to be achieved in future from my side. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much. So we really see that there is a way ahead. So these funds that we were able to use really helped us to build something where we can build on now for concrete activities. And just as a concrete example, excuse me for this, but in the canton of Valais, where I'm living, and I'm also president of the Lignum Valais Valais, we are now going to adapt the methodology which was elaborated in this project for a very concrete example for the value chain on wood. So this is really a helpful tool. So those who are interested, go and have a look on it at the website of AG5. Thank you very much, Peter, for the report. Now, let's move to Daria. I said in the introduction, open data is for us a new field, and the idea was now to develop a roadmap elaborating on how we can work on this topic for the upcoming years. Do we have a roadmap, Daria?
It's getting more and more touchable. Yes, we have the starting point. Maybe I can explain what we did in the last hour.
Yeah. Exactly.
So I'm happy to share with you the conclusions of our workshop today. My guests first had their presentations through which we wanted to get the insight of what these open data actually are, what they can offer, what are the opportunities for the region, how to best support and promote the activities towards open data community in the Alpine region. Which are the challenges or most interesting sectors in the region that should be first addressed? What are the opportunities and benefits for rural communities, for example, and villagers, and how should we encourage them to collaborate? My guests were Aleš Veršič from Open Data Hub Slovenia, with the presentation Open Data, or a big white elephant is the potential or the sorry, is this a huge elephant or unused potential? Then we had also Guillaume Ducan from ADREDS, who presented the needs for the use of open data in the Alpine area. He also presented 2 projects in TESI and Smart Villages. We also have Stefano Sala here with us from University of Milan. He also presented a concrete example of Impulse for Action ARPAF project. And finally, we came to these first steps towards the roadmap, towards Alpine open community, with our colleague from University of Maribor, Professor Willy Podgorelec, who gave us really the insight of what this data is, how it should be structured, what is the challenges, what are the problems we should have in mind. He also presented one already ongoing project, DEAS, Alpine Space Project. So, what are these common areas and business sectors we should first address? We found out that it would be mobility, for example, including emergency access, tourism, environment with water management and soil protection, and of course agriculture, especially in rural areas, although rural is not always only agriculture. Then we also find out that bottom-up approach is needed, like in Smart Villages project, where villagers should identify their own challenges, and they should see if their data are available and if they are compatible, etc. What are the most important challenges for the roadmap? Different data models, different coordination systems of the region, semantics, and what is the next step? What is the really first next step is open data readiness study. This is our first step towards the open Alpine data community. Of course, we need the supportive ecosystem. What we also need is the supportive ecosystem with all different stakeholders, different hubs, already existing policies, initiatives, platforms, ongoing projects, small experimental projects, for example, exchange of good practices. We already, like all of us, we should always keep in mind that for the sustainability of the project, we should integrate different platforms of already existing projects. All this is actually necessary to boost this initiative towards for the Alpine community and make it the reality.
Okay, thank you very much, Daria. I see there is a lot of work waiting for us. I think open data is really now the big topic, not only a big white elephant, but the big topic in all countries, all regions. And we have to work on that. I know that, for instance, even in France, they are now saying that it is a public service. So it should be provided by government side. And I think this is not so bad an idea, because we are discussing about public services as digital infrastructure, but also the digital data should be more and more considered as a public service. Okay, thank you very much, Daria, for this contribution. Sorry, Carlo, I have to switch because Gabi just informed me that she has to leave in 5 minutes. So if you don't mind, I will take first Gabi. She's already smiling, and I hope she's prepared now to tell us what they discussed on e-health, Gabi.
Yeah, thank you very much for the switch of time. We discussed a lot of topics, especially the question whether the e-health could improve the accessibility for the population, especially in rural areas. I gave a small input about a pilot project of eHealth in Upper Franconia. This project combines special digital consultation between practices, between medicines and population groups, especially the population group of the baby boomers. And then Hannah Bockholcin gave us an overview about the question of obstacles in the development of eHealth. And she mentioned especially that the eHealth is an innovation, and social innovation and demographic innovation. And the eHealth, she also mentioned that the eHealth is a factor for staying for population groups in rural areas. And then Mauro Criccioni and Marco Bazzani mentioned the question of data, of security. And I think this is also a very important topic concerning the digital health, because there are data which are very sensible data. And it was also mentioned that on the example of a pandemic situation, especially in Italy. I think it was a very, very interesting workshop because it was discussed by the colleagues, the questions of what kind and which topics the eHealth and the digitalization in eHealth will have, but also the problems and the obstacles. And the obstacles, I think, were especially in the data security, in the cyber security, especially between the practice, the medicines who are practicing and the clinics and the patients. Unfortunately, we don't have time for discussion. The reports were so long and so intensive that the auditorium doesn't have a chance for questions.
That's a pity. I'm sorry for that. We thought with 1.5 hours there should be enough time, but I'm sorry also for having had to reduce a little bit the time of the workshops. So thank you for the report. I think
perhaps I would like to add, I think one of most important results were also that all rural regions and all peripheral regions have to look for individual solutions. There is not one solution for all rural areas, but there should be different and individual solutions for eHealth depending on the kind of peripheral regions.
Yeah, okay, thank you. That's a very important remark. And the other two remarks that I take up from your presentation is first that we need an integrated territorial approach. This is one thing that we are promoting always. And with integrated, we mean that it is not only looking at health, but also about the combination potential with other services. How can digitalization help in this respect? And then the other point that you stressed now again, like Daria before, is the one on data. And I think this underlines once more how important it is really to deal with this data and to reflect to which extent they must be maybe also public services. You are also a member of our think tank on services of general interest. We see each other tomorrow again, and we can discuss about this point exactly tomorrow. So thank you for participating, Gabi.
And to all our colleagues. Bye.
Thank you, Gabi, and see you tomorrow.
Bye.
So last but not least, Carlo, dear colleague and co-leader, you were discussing about a roadmap for digital infrastructure. So the same question goes to you. Do you have a roadmap now?
Yeah, we have a roadmap, and thank you to the intervention of Franco Cordina, Robert Henkel from DG Connect. We started from the strategic view of this digital infrastructure, and thanks to Jan Droge, we go to the European Broadband Competency Office network, so we get this introduction that is at the strategy level and about all the opportunities that European programs and funds can give to Alpine Region. Then, with the contribution from Paolo Perucci from Friuli Venezia Giulia, Leonardo Camiciotti from Topics, and Clive Peckham from Carpe Diem project, we go to the three main digital infrastructure, kind of digital infrastructure that are the pillar of this roadmap. The first one is, of course, connectivity. The second one are data infrastructure. And the third one are distributed innovation facilities. And so these are the three main pillars of the roadmap. Going to some result at the strategic level, I will underline that it's crucial to start from the long-term vision of digital decade, the European vision, of course, and approach the transformation connecting small entities as a large one to building a continuum of connectivity, and so invest in high-capacity infrastructure at all levels, and to also take full opportunity from the European digital strategies and the huge momentum that is put in place by European Commission for the period 21 and 27. And of course, I mentioned SEF to digital and RRF, but of course, we will share all the presentation with all detail on programs and specific case of application. Also, as Alpine territories, we need to share ongoing practices, involve all the stakeholders, and maybe to draft or to share some common approach to specific territorial plans on this relevant action. And we can mention just some of them, like 5G communities, backbone in international corridor, but also at the regional level, and invest, other colleagues already mentioned, in operational digital platform. Not forget that the territories, the region, the municipalities are not alone in this path, but it's so important to include and collaborate with national and regional BCO, and so to take part of the BCO, European BCO network. And these are the main message at the strategic level. Going to the first of the pillar, that is connectivity, we discussed a lot about how to close the gap in the connectivity infrastructure, and one of these points is, and we'll focus on this, are the cross-border backbones. So to have an EUSALP view on this network and the key role of cross-border backbone for border regions. The second one is to invest in backbone network at the regional level, and so not only on big corridors, but to have a coverage of all the territories, rural, mountain, marginal territories, and to adopt a mixed technological approach for the access network in the remote area. And this can unleash some very interesting practical application like smart park, applying smart technologies to the national or regional park, or also going to some smart outdoor areas like skiing the resort and so on, and a lot of other very, very interesting and application. From the data infrastructure point of view, just to summarize, it's important to have a federated approach with all initiative at European level. And I will mention also start to define some data space for an Alpine data place that we can call it an Alpine X maybe, and promote so in this way the creation of pilots, several pilot edge infrastructure on Alpine territories, federated at a European level, but also in this in this infrastructure to start as soon as possible to test the Gaia X compliant data sharing initiatives. And going to the third, last one, key pillar, that is distributed innovation facilities. We discussed about the relevance of a bottom-up approach to be inclusive for all territories and to sustain a network of micro or local digital innovation hub distributed over rural and mountain areas, something like satellite small digital innovation hub to foster the digital transition of the smallest economic player. And of course, this point is very important to be successful. If there is an interconnection between these local digital innovation hub at the regional level and with the overall and first level of the European digital innovation hub. I think I tried to summarize all the concept, and of course this is the starting point of this roadmap, and we will develop it in the future months. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Carlo. I think we have all understood that there are close linkages between all the different topics that we have seen now, because when you were talking about digital infrastructures, you were also talking about digital data, and with that we come to open data, and then we have users which have to use that, and these are, for instance, the SMEs or the villages, the municipalities, etc. So there are really close linkages between the different topics. And this will be the challenge for us in Action Group 5, together with other action groups, really to bring all these together, like also Mr. Gumina said in his introductory speak. So thank you very much for your moderation, for your extra effort today. Thank you very much. We will now go one step further. And for me, this is a little bit a personal highlight, because we have now, on the one side, we have a little bit delay, but we would like to integrate now the young people. We have invited 2 young people to join us today, and they will be, let's say, the ones who make the concluding remarks of today. Because what we are doing here is we are discussing our vision, our potentials, what we see, etc. But finally, all that we are doing here, we are doing it for the young people, because they are the future of the Alps. And this is also something that the Macro-Regional Strategy for the Alps, EUSALP, has recognized. Therefore, they have constituted a group of young people who are discussing different topics. And we have invited 2 of them, which I would like to invite now to join me on this virtual panel. We have, here they are. We have on the one side, Lena Lacker. She is a student from Innsbruck in Austria. She's studying law and political sciences. So she will be one day maybe a mayor of a municipality, or I don't know, but certainly in this direction, I hope so. And we have on the other side Lorenzo Giacomino, who is already a vice mayor of a municipality, of the municipality of Ronco Canavese. I'm very impressed because I have heard that you're 25 years old and already Weissmeier. So I think you must be one of the youngest of them in Italy. And you're also studying something which is very interesting for the Alpine area. You're studying in urban planning and territorial development. So these are really the topics that we are discussing about. Both of you have brought us some video messages. But before going into these video messages, just a short discussion maybe with the two of you. You have been, Lena, you have been listening to all this discussion today. From your perspective now, as really a young representative of the mountain population, what do you think about this discussion? Is there something that strikes you, that you take back as a key message from today's discussion? Is there some element that really was a highlight for you today?
So I think the topic of digitalization is really important and really interesting. And I just found it interesting because Mr. Hess said earlier, when we talk about the layers of digitalization, important that the people are part of it. And when I talked to the young people, I found out that most of them did not know that much about digitalization, even though you would always think they're digitalized. But I mean, they have tablets, they have laptops, but they just don't really think about digitalization in general. So I think it's important to actually give them the opportunity to be part of it.
Really to sensitize them for the importance of the topic, if I understand right. Yeah, okay. For you, Lorenzo, is there also one element maybe that was really important for you from today's discussion?
Okay, but I think that we have here today is nothing more than the everyday life of tomorrow. And so the role of local government, such as my small local government, is to anticipate the future.
Yeah.
As possible.
I think this we will now see also with the videos that you brought to us. I would like to start with Lena. You brought us some testimonials from some young people. Would you like to say something in the introduction to this?
Yeah, of course. So I talked to students from the Akademische Gymnasium in Innsbruck, that's the school, and they're between 16 and 17. And I just want to say that they didn't have much time to prepare the answers, so it was very spontaneous, but I think that's important so that they can't actually prepare something, so it's more flexible and more interesting.
Mm-hmm. Oh, okay, thank you. Thank you also for preparing this video, and I would suggest that we now have a look at this video.
Yeah.
So if the Regia could show us, thank you.
Yeah, I think there are some problems like installing glass fiber on the street, which causes a lot of traffic, but I couldn't think of a better way of installing glass fiber or doing better internet.
So I think that for the online school, so it didn't have much impact on me, and I think that we managed it well, and
there are a few problems. For example, the Wi-Fi connections. These are often really slow and outages are not unusual. So I myself live in a relatively remote area and I have to face these problems on a daily basis.
Many people have bad access to the internet. I don't have these problems because I live in a city, but I think we should work on that.
I don't have any experiences with these topics, but I can imagine, let's say, when you have a job where you have many meetings and you can easily host these meetings online by video call, and you don't necessarily have to meet these people physically.
In the future, there might be the possibility, or there might be possibilities for people living in rural regions to work in the home office as well as people living in urban cities to work from home, and therefore they can save some time which they would have spent traveling from their hometown into the cities to go to their work, and it would be really nice for them if they could save their pastime.
Online sport lessons in terms of using systems that are now being used for gaming, like VR, for example.
Okay, I have the idea that students could take part in lessons online if they live too far away from school or if they are ill for a long time, because we've seen that this could work already in distance learning. But it requires enough communication. In 20 years, I think there will be internet accessible for everyone in Austria, and also every official service should be fully digitalized and able to be contacted online.
So people are able to probably join classes online, even if they are in the university, but they don't live at the university or like at the campus. They just join online and can still live with their family or in other countries.
Okay, thank you very much. I think that was impressive, how young people analyze the situation. What I take back from this presentation is that they see problems with the infrastructure, the digital infrastructure, but on the other side they see a lot of potential also. Be it for their daily life, like homeschooling, etc., but also for the future work with teleworking, co-working spaces, etc. I think they really see the potentials. Lena, is this correct as a summary? Yeah. Okay, thank you. I would like to switch to Lorenzo. Also, you, Lorenzo, brought us a video, and you have selected Claudio Brenna. Maybe
Claudio
you need also to
is a
explain us why
university
you...
professor. Okay.
Yeah. Why did you
Claudio
select him?
is a okay. Claudio is a university professor that lived in Milan, and since March of 2020, with the COVID emergency, he decided to move in my town in Ronco Canavese at an altitude of 1,000 meters. And can you listen to what he has to say of his experience?
Okay, yes, thank you. So let's see the video with Claudio Brenna.
Hi, I'm Claudio. I'm a university professor and consultant. I teach economics in Bocconi University in Milan and in Aosta Valle University. I used to work in the Alpine area. I have a little home in Ronco Canavese in Soana Valley, and I used to work here, unless when I have a class, obviously, at university, and when I have to meet some customer. I used to work here because here I have a very, very good connection, internet connection, and also because here I have no colleague bothering me. The environment is fantastic, and it is, and my job, in particular the research part and consultancy part, is really good. Is really sorry, and my job allow me to work where I want, and I prefer to stay here. What about my experience with digitalization? I had a very good experience with some government services, for example, tax declaration or unemployment benefit request or other services, but I really think that digitalization is not finished for the Italian government. We need to do a lot for some services, for example, for contract registration, also for some other thing. What about digitalization? My thinking about digitalization in rural areas and in Alpine, in inner areas in the world. I really think that digitalization is not able alone to close the gap between the rural area, the Alpine area, and the cities. Digitalization allows the rural area to maintain the gap, not to widen the gap. Digitalization is the basis. If we digitalize services, we will have a step forward in the cities, and if we digitalize also the rural area, we will have a step forward also for the rural areas. But the digitalization alone is not able to close the gap between rural areas and cities. In some cases, it is possible that digitalization closes the gap. Where the transportation cost is the most important factor enabling the use of services. For example, if I need to use, for example, a banking or education or consulting service, if I live in a city, I save just 5 minutes, that is the time I use to exit my door, going down the stairs, exit my house, and go to the bank. If I digitalize the bank services, I will save 5 minutes if I work in the city. Otherwise, if I live in a rural area, I would take, for example, half an hour. And then if I digitalize this sort of service, I will save half an hour, 1 hour. That is my very huge cost of transportation from my rural areas to the location where the bank, the education infrastructure, the consulting infrastructure is located. What can the digitalization do for the inner areas? Can decrease the market access cost. That is, if you digitalize, for example, the marketing, you can absolutely decrease the marketing cost, the physical cost in reaching the customers. And then you can increase the opportunities for local product, for local producer. Local producer can increase the market and then can have a new opportunities. It is really important to also look at the counterpart. That is, for example, the increasing competition. If every territory digitalizes services, then every area can access a new market. The market will widen, but also the competition will increase. Then the producer located in rural areas and in Alpine space need to specialize. The specialization is the key for success in a wider market.
Thank you very much, Lorenzo, for having brought to us this also very differentiated view. I take up as a key message also the statement that digitalization is important, but we also need to do something with it. We need to use the potential, else it is useless. This was for me a little bit of the key message. Now to both of you, and I would again maybe start with Lena as a conclusion. We are going to talk tomorrow again about all this digitalization. We will have policymakers, etc. And now let's say it's Christmas, and you make your wish list on digitalization in the Alpine area from your perspective. What would be on top of your wish list? What is your major wish?
That's actually a difficult question because I have like some points I'm really interested in, but so because I was part of the workshop about e-health, I think that is one of the most interesting for me. So it would be so that there's for example, patient record online, so you can go to a doctor everywhere you want, and they already have your information. and maybe combine that with prescriptions also saved online. You go to every pharmacy and just get the medication you need, and you don't have to see a doctor first. So that's one that's really interesting for me, and because I'm a university student, is that classes work better. I mean, we have classes online, but some professors still don't know how to use these programs, Zoom or Teams, and they just send us like things to read and do on our own. And it would just be great to actually have online classes that work in a dialogue.
Okay, so it's really about digital skills and enforcing the know-how of teachers also, not only of the students, because you're normally
Yes.
digital natives, let's say. There's, by the way, a European call now open on that topic if somebody wants to work on it. Is this a little bit more the most important points for you?
Yes.
Okay, thank you. Lorenzo, for you, it's Christmas. What do you want for digitalization?
I want to the same possibilities in the different territories. For example, for me, for my opinion, in Italia, there's a problem with digitalization because it's not yet a common heritage. And so is a possibility today only for a part of Italy and also of the EUSALP area in Italy. And there are not the same condition. For example, in my Alpine valleys suffers an average of 5 power cuts of more than 8 hours per year. And so this blackout, there are many blackouts in the years, during also 36 hours in my town. And how is it possible to imagine the digitalization of services without electricity? And I think that is the main problem. Because it's difficult for a young administrator such as me imagine the future with this problem, these actual problems there are in the Alpine area.
So really strengthening basic services, access to public services, etc., so that all of us have equal chances to develop. If I understood you right. Okay, yeah, thank you very much. At the end of this conference, first day, anything else that you would like to add, would like to give us on the way? Or was this the wish list that you have? Lena or Lorenzo, concluding remarks from your side? Lena?
I think I said everything I wanted to say, but I think it's a very important topic, and I'm glad that there's like people actually working on it and that they are listening to us, the youth. So I'm really grateful for that. Thank you.
Thank you for bringing in your point, and I hope that you can also be tomorrow at the conference where we will try to bring in your points to the discussion on the panel. Lorenzo, anything from you on the end?
Yeah, thank you so much for this possibility.
Okay, so thank you for being with us. That was a great pleasure to have you with us. For me, as I said, it is very important to have also the voices of young people to see what are your intentions, what are your ambitions, what can we do for you, because we are not doing anything for us, we are doing it for you at the end. So, ladies and gentlemen, we have arrived at the end of this first day. I'm just concluding to say thank you, all of you who have participated, all of you who contributed, Lena and Lorenzo who are still with us, and all the other contributions. Thank you very much. We see us again tomorrow morning at 9 o'clock, same place, same, not same time, but same place. And we will continue with what we have discussed now with you. So have a good evening, enjoy your evening, and see you tomorrow. Goodbye.